So we have these different organizations that are, sorry, we have this organization that is in place to protect to ethically and legally protect the rights of a data subject. And what it does is it puts pressure back onto other organizations who might be collecting this information to act in a responsible way and to make sure that we don't have another Cambridge Analytica scandal or any other similar one that might arise from that. Now, at the outset of this lecture, at the outset of this week's lecture, lecture one, I looked at the responsibility of individuals to themselves behave as if they were data ethical. To not give this information away in the first place, and to be kind of have a healthy cynicism and lack of trust for what other organizations, for how this information can be used. I'm not a fan of conspiracy theorists, but we have seen generally there are some malevolent forces that are out there. They're not governmental ones. They're ones that are trying to manipulate government, and in some jurisdictions it has happened, and it's important that people be more and more aware of that in the future. So there's a few different elements to that. There's one, the part where you hold the information back yourself. There's the legislative framework like GDPR. The next one that we're going to look at is what organizations themselves can do to protect themselves from this, so they can kind of rest easy about not having done this in the first place, and meeting, so many people want to meet the spirit of what this is, rather than kind of having to worry about whether they're found out. And then towards the end of the lecture, we'll look at that, I suppose, the final part, kind of coming full circle on this, where we look at how people themselves can work against bad data. Work against the unethical use of data and fake news and that type of thing. And this is using a tool that we've already discussed in this module already. But to look at the next level, how can data ventures ensure privacy? Privacy by design is a very, very popular approach. It's based in information science to the design of complex systems, and this was produced by a Canadian data protection commissioner or information commissioner, and it's the idea of organizations who might be working with data or might be working any type of way that with a process that might end up that could unintentionally result in the violation of an individual's data rights. So the 7 foundational principles of privacy by design are this: is that when you're designing a principle, make sure that you think about privacy as something that you proactively introduce into whatever system you are developing. So the idea is that you're to prevent data breaches in your system, not fix them after they have happened. Now, by making this this is an important tweak, an important principle at the design stage, because it means that you're trying to ensure that that privacy isn't limited. Privacy becomes the default setting into whatever services or programs or applications you are introducing. You've got to make sure that the individual's privacy is not something that they have to kind of worry about. Huge concerns about social media sites in this space. Personally, I signed off Facebook many years ago, and decided not to use it because over a short period of time there had been a few, and in fairness to Facebook, they had announced this quite clearly and openly. This was in the US, that they were changing privacy settings, and it just, with other things going on in a person's life and everything, it just became too difficult. It was just an additional burden to have to keep going back in and checking those settings. So I opted not to use that service anymore. And I believe that, well, I hope they've made some changes to it since. But that's just one example of a company that does this. Now, when you think of it, when you're signing up to use any service, you get that long list of, like a little contract that you have to sign beforehand that talks about the way that your data is going to be used. If doing that, involves reading through that every time, I think a lot of people just click and they accept and they use it and they move on. this is not I mean, this is the organization doing what it's meant to be doing under, it's attempting to be data ethical by being really clear with people, saying this is how we're going to use your information in the first place. And for established systems like, Facebook, and I don't really want to come down too hard on any one particular company in this. Um, uh, the idea is that if you look at that contract, and when you're designing a new system, it's harder for the more established ones to do this because they've been built up over time, and this might impact on their operations. But if privacy becomes the default setting, it means that concern is pretty much taken care of. Privacy then becomes embedded into the design. It becomes on the basis of full functionality, though. It's like sustainability. You cannot assume that by embedding privacy into the design of a system, by proactively making it the default setting, you're not offering your customers anything less as the result of what that is. So this means that you've got to find new ways to use to use your all of your creative, innovative capacities to ensure that your customers are not losing out. Because if they do, then they'll essentially go somewhere else and for their information, for their applications or for their services. And as a result, these companies, these alternative companies may not value privacy as a design principle in the same way that your company does. So you almost have a social responsibility to make sure that you offer the full set of services that's required. End-to-end security. This is something that happens right from the outset of somebody's usage with it, right to the very, very end, that they remain completely, and we talk about life cycles and sustainable systems all the time, that this is something that has to be guaranteed right throughout, from before somebody joins you as a customer or a user to the time that they cease using it as well. Visibility and transparency is critical to this. You need to be very, very open with people about the principles of privacy of design, and keep your system as open as possible as well, and as transparent, so nobody needs to worry about what it is going to happen to their data. And finally, it probably is a rule of thumb that you can see coming from the other 6 ones here, that these have to be user-centered systems. Any system that is user-centric puts the user at the core of everything that they're offering. Not just usability, not just functionality, not just robustness and consistency of service. The privacy of the customer has to be as important as all of these different things. Now, I know some data lawyers and information lawyers really like this principle, because the idea of privacy by design, because it means that it's something that the key principle is enshrined in how people use and operate the system. Another way of looking at this, by actually building ethics into into a product or a service, is one that Kotler discussed back in nearly 50 years ago, which he called societal marketing. And societal marketing or social marketing it's kind of different to what we might have, how we might have understood it in the past. And he said the societal marketing concept causes for the same customer orientation, backed by integrated market, but aimed at generating customer satisfaction as a key to attaining long-run profitable volume. So long-run profitable volume, some slightly archaic language there, or maybe even some language that's not archaic or comes from economics. But what you'll see in that definition there is pretty much a strong definition of what all marketing is, with the exception of this idea: long-run customer welfare. That's instead of long run, let's say long-term customer welfare as the key to delivering, sustainable profit over time. Read this quote: the addition of long-run, long-term consumer welfare asks the businessman or woman, right? This is a direct quote, excuse the sexism, from that time, to include social and ecological considerations in his product, her product, and product and market planning. They're asked to do this not only to meet his social responsibilities, her social responsibilities, but also because failure to do this may hurt his or her long-run interests as a producer. Now, so I hadn't read that quote in a long time. I couldn't believe how male centric it is. But there you go. We'll erase the gender part of it here. Large proportion of marketers are female as well. Okay, so really what is being discussed here is this idea that by doing a different type of marketing, you're asking people to create long-term value as opposed to short-term value. And like sustainability, this looks at the systemic elements of this. Kotler offers, classification of different product opportunities on the basis of long-term customer welfare. And this can be, it can, if it's low, it means it doesn't help somebody's welfare at all. In fact, it can probably damage it if they continue to use it. It's a very kind of short-term thing. And if it's high, then it is concerned with it. And then on the other hand, it looks at the level of satisfaction that a customer gets from a product. You can get low levels of satisfaction, or they can get high levels of satisfaction. So what he's proposing in this model is that if you have one that's both, it doesn't deliver long-run consumer welfare, and it offers low levels of immediate satisfaction, that product's deficient and it's not going to last long in the market anyway, so we can almost cancel it out. On the other hand, if it delivers high-run long-term consumer welfare but low levels of immediate satisfaction, it's a salutary product. It's something that somebody might need or is good for them, but they're not really interested in it. Kind of healthier foods that don't taste well, or products or services that are good for you, but it can be difficult to market these because they don't take care of that immediate level of satisfaction. It's interesting to look at this model. It's almost like has the same concerns as the Brundtland definition of sustainability, meeting the needs of the future while not sacrificing the needs of the present. Salutary products meet the needs of the future, but don't meet the needs of the immediate present. If you look at a product that has a high level of immediate satisfaction, but has very short term impacts on or is low, sorry, it doesn't help a customer in the long term, this is a pleasing product. So this is, I'm not advertising these now, junk foods or cigarettes or alcohol, or something that'll kind of keep you happy in the short term but damage your welfare in the long run, is a pleasing product. Doesn't necessarily have to be a vice product, but obviously the goal is to produce something that does both, that satisfies immediately but also contributes to long-run consumer welfare. Privacy by design in information systems or in organizations that are reliant on data does both of these, because the organization will be protected in the long run by making sure that everybody's privacy is maintained and acknowledged and is seen as being central, and will help individuals also as well. To go back to the definition and to remove the sexist and the male-centered language here as well, what they're talking here, what Kotler is really talking about here, is meeting social responsibilities so that the organization's long-run interests as a producer may not be impacted. The organizations who satisfy the privacy of the individual consumers' data is also one that will create new standards for ensuring the continuation of data privacy in the future. So an organization that builds this in and does it successfully is one that sets a new standard or a benchmark for other organizations, and a benchmark for a new set of consumers' data expectations as well in the future. So let's look at the whole field of information literacy now, and ask how we can actually protect ourselves from fake news and from spurious online information. So this is back to us as consumers being data ethical as well. First of all, I just want to show you another quick video related to the Cambridge Analytica scandal. This one is a very short one. It's an interview with somebody, one of the whistleblowers actually, who was connected in this, and this gives you the inside perspective of somebody who worked for a company that was that essentially was heavily criticized for violating the data privacy rights of individuals and using information in a way that it wasn't intended.